We have a disturbing in a good way for
A
Apocaflix
poster.
now. I think Smashing Padme is our alternate Padawan shirt.
Oh my goodness. There
I
we
can't, dude. I cannot get that out of my head.
That's how
I
it
think you just permanently ruined that scene with me
Oh my
of
God.
Hold
Obi-Wan
on.
just standing at
Now
the top
we're gonna
with
be-
his arms on his
Oh
hips.
my God.
Hold on.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Padawan Podcast, Apocaflix Movies All Star Wars Podcast. We are breaking down everything from the galaxy far, far away. I'm your host, Jake Berlin, aka Qui-Gon Jake, as I go by on our Star Wars podcast here on Apocaflix Movies. And I have the normal crew with me today. I got Mr. Barley, Obi-Wan Jacoby right there in the middle. How you doing, man?
Hello there. I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Did I catch you off guard by introducing you a little early?
No, we're good. I was just, switching some water around. Gotta keep the mouth wet for Padawan,
Very, very true. That's another shirt I get. Jacob, you're just you and these sayings, man. You and these sayings. We also have
to say I don't want to be
Grand Admiral
dehydrated, but
Grand Admiral Sino himself, Brian Ablesino, over there on the right-hand side. How you doing, sir?
Yeah, I don't know how you follow up that, but all right.
I know. So today, continuing our ranking breakdowns, we have some really, really cool things to talk about today. We're obviously, as the title says, ranking the animated lightsaber fights in Star Wars. Just as with live action, there's quite a bit of them, even more, in fact. Obviously, because the Clone Wars is the height of the Jedi. Rebels took place in a time where we saw more so than we usually did in that time area. But being that it's animated and there's a lot more capability to use lightsabers and fight with Jedi, specifically in storylines, there's quite a bit of them. And we're going to be ranking them through 10 today, personally. And then we're going to be revealing our overall top 5 consensus list for the Padawan podcast. And I will be ranking that and counting those up as we go. And but before we get to that, we're going to get to just a little bit of news here quickly. If you guys watch our weekly show, our other weekly show, but our flagship show, Apocaflix Now, you guys knew that we made an announcement on last week's episodes that the second week of July, here just in about 2 or 3 weeks, both Padawan Podcast and Nerd Nation will be going away for the foreseeable future. They will be put on hiatus, not canceled, but essentially be put on pause for a good chunk of time. And we went into reasoning on that show in depth, but we wanted to make sure we covered it here because it is the Padawan and it is a show that is going away. And so just quickly, boys, thoughts, comments, questions, concerns, anything you want to throw out there before we get to our ranking?
Man, this is the one that hurts the most, to be honest. Padawan it's our longest running thing that we've done. We started it back then. When we started it, our channel was completely different. We were doing like 3 other different shows, and Padawan's the one that stuck through this whole time. And it's something really cool. Like, it could be its own YouTube channel if we wanted it to, but it's been a fun run, and we're not done. We're just taking a pause. We're trying to do the right thing for this YouTube channel. So I think it's overall a good thing, but this one show is the one that hurts. Like, it didn't hit me until right now that this is our second to last episode, I believe.
We not next week, but the week after will be the final one.
So we have 3 more, including this one. Okay, so we have some time, but
okay.
Yeah, it's Star Wars, man. So you know how that goes.
Yeah, Brian.
Yeah, I'm indifferent on it still. I probably will always be, but yeah, same thoughts and echoes that Jacob said. So.
All right. Well, with that said, let's go ahead and get to these rankings, boys. And how this works is essentially we've been figuring out this as we've been going the last couple weeks. We're just going to reveal them one by one. We're going to go down the list 10 to 1. That person who is revealing is going to be the only person that really talks. We'll throw in some comments here and there. The other people who are listening and finding out the official placement of these lightsaber fights. But then at the end, when we reveal our consensus, we'll be able to get into more discussion about that. And so here we go. Started with Brian first. Started with Jacob second, and I'm going right back to Brian. And you are starting us off, Mr. Avalosino.
Before you start, I will say shout out to Olga K.
Comment, yes.
Yes, their comment directly after we ranked the live action ones said, "Are you guys going to do an animated one?" And I said,
Oh, wow.
replied with maybe because
It was
we-
already on the schedule. It was
Yeah,
already on the
perfect.
Yeah.
So yeah. So wait, why
All
am
right,
I?
Brian, go
You
ahead and
gotta
start
make
with
sure-
number 10.
We got to make sure they
Funny.
see this one.
Yeah, it's funny how Jake never starts out, right?
My fault.
Let me see. All right, so it's funny because I absolutely hated this fight when it happened, but now I've grown to appreciate it for what it is, and that is going to be the Obi-Wan versus Maul fight in Rebels.
Oh, nice.
Wow. Okay.
Um,
I'm a little surprised.
you and me both. It's funny because like I kept looking around, but like kept getting drawn back to this one, and I think obviously it ended in a result I don't love with Darth Maul being dead, but at the same time, I've kind of learned to appreciate it in a way because Maul's story is easily one of the ones that came from nothing and went above and beyond. And there's only so long he could run that dance, I feel like. And it probably would have been a little bit silly for him to keep going past what he did. And for me, I kind of just look at it now as like these two tired, lost souls that just have been on opposite ends for so long, and just like it wasn't so much as Maul just like giving up, but just showing like I'm tired, like I'm done. And I don't know, I've kind of it's more symbolic, I think, to me now that literally it was like one stroke and done. So yeah, that's my
I will say I agree with you in an aspect because I have come to learn that the fight was never meant to be the masterful lightsaber fight that we always thought it would be.
Yeah.
You said the perfect word. It is symbolic, and one specific reason they talk about Luke and him being the chosen one in that scene.
Yeah.
And Maul said, "Is he the one?" And Obi-Wan says, "Yes." And they have that great. It almost feels like a brother relationship, right? I mean, you said they're on opposite sides the entire time of their story, and their stories have been intertwined for so long. But in this one small moment, they come together to be like, yeah, the balance is going to be restored, and it's going to be the right way, because obviously Sidious wronged Maul, wronged Obi-Wan. Like, they kind of have that connection there. It still is sucky because obviously we want to see Obi-Wan and Maul go at it like hard
Obviously,
one last time, but the deeper meaning of it is definitely there. So I like it. Good call, man. All right, Mr. Barley, number 10.
Silence.
No, I thought we were just moving on to the next one.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on that because I wouldn't talk about that, so I just wanted to.
Okay. Yeah, so mine is from the Clone War. My number 10 is from the Clone Wars, and it's Obi-Wan and I don't know how to pronounce her name, but Adi Gallia versus Maul and Savage Opress in the Clone Wars.
Love this fight.
I just remember the death of Adi Gallia during this scene. Oh my goodness. And it wasn't even by a lightsaber blade.
Oh,
it was by the horns of Savage Opress. And just, it reminds me again, Clone Wars is so brutal. It is more brutal than Revenge of the Sith, to be honest. There's so many, like when somebody gets killed in Clone Wars, at least for most of the seasons, when they show a lightsaber go through someone's back, you see it come out the front and things like that. And I'm like, oh my goodness, how are they allowed to get away with
Cartoon Network,
stuff?
Man.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I like it because it's not like it was rated R. It was just, it was as realistic as it could be. And even in Star Wars, even though it's lightsaber, laser swords, and laser blasters, it's still blood and gore and death. So seeing that moment was very realistic. And the lightsaber stuff is really cool in this fight as well, but it just reminds me of the brutalness of Clone Wars. So that's why I got this one on the list.
Cool. All right. My number 10 comes from Rebels.
I will say really quickly, that was my number 11.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah, that her death is probably the most brutal, I want to say, of all Star Wars deaths that I can think of.
It's one of them because it's not by a blade or a blaster shot,
It's literally
something else.
horns to the chest.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. My number 10 is, like I said, going to Rebels. And it's probably a fight that I'm sure we'll be talking about here in the near future. But that is Kanan and Ezra versus the Grand Inquisitor from season 1.
Nice.
Absolutely brilliant of a fight. A character in the Grand Inquisitor that just really just blew us away. So different from what we had known in Star Wars. And look how much the Inquisitors have grown since then. Voiced by Jason Isaacs, which is just, I want to see that character back so bad in some capacity. But it really is, and Brian had mentioned it with his, that the fight was definitely a symbolic fight. This one has a much more of a deeper meaning because it affects Kanan in a different way. We're kind of like, right? It kind of leads him to a specific path. Like he has to become this true Jedi that aren't around anymore. And the Grand Inquisitor says, you have no idea what you're getting into. And that leads into season 2 with Vader popping into the picture and all the rest of the Inquisitors. And then Ahsoka showing up eventually. And, they've jumped into a larger world, and obviously the spinning lightsaber, the double-sided spinning lightsaber blade is just crazy. I remember when that first trailer ever dropped for Rebels, and you saw that, and you're just kind of like, wow. Wow. It looked silly, but it looked cool, and then end up being absolutely badass on the show. But yeah, I remember watching Rebels again for the first time after not seeing it for a while and thinking to myself, wow, they didn't use the Grand Inquisitor as much as I would have liked, but this was like the perfect placement for him, and he served his purpose. His perfect purpose perfectly. That's what I was trying to say. So yes, number 10 for me is Kanan and Ezra versus the Grand Inquisitor.
That is a great one.
All right, so number 9 for me, I have a feeling you guys are going to be like, this should be higher, but for number 9 for me, it is Sabine versus Scar Saxon. It's a pretty solid. I mean, Sabine's been training to fight him, and it's a really solid fight between these two, and they go at it.
Two Mandalorians,
yes,
fighting with lightsabers.
Yeah, they definitely go at it through this scene, and everyone's just watching on and just can't do really anything about it until he gives up, and she says she's not going to kill him, and then her mom shoots him right in the chest. So yeah, it's surprising to me how good that lightsaber fight is, and it kind of reminds me of, like, I don't know, it's the closest I feel like we'll ever see to like the Mandalorian wielding a lightsaber, so like versus the dark saber. I mean, I'm sure someone will have a lightsaber against him at some point, but I don't think it will be the Mandalorian. So like, this is to me the closest I'll probably see that, and it's a really good fight scene. So yeah,
cool.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. I'll say it's not on my list, but I do remember that, and it was just so cool. I believe Kanan was training her, right, leading up to that.
That's what I was going to say, the lead up to it.
Yeah, it was really good, and it tied into all the Mandalorian stuff going on, and that was a great fight, actually. And it's crazy because most of these fights are between Force users, or at least a Force user is involved. Neither of them were first Force users, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an interesting fight. So yeah, my number 9 is from Rebels, and it is Ahsoka versus the fifth brother and seventh sister in Rebels.
Dude, her reintroduction.
Yes, this fight is awesome. I believe she's using both sabers.
Hell yeah!
Yeah, and just her double-handed thing. This fight is awesome because I forget what was going on, but they were I forget what was going on, but somebody was in trouble, and Ahsoka like comes and saves the day basically, and
So
then
it was
pulls
the
them
episode.
off.
It was the
Yeah.
episode where they were saving the force sensitive baby on the
Yes.
planet.
Oh yes, you're right. You're right.
Chasing
Yeah,
them.
The Ithorian
Okay.
baby, my favorite
Yeah,
species.
so
Yes.
you guys will notice a theme throughout this. I've only watched Clone Wars and Rebels once, so I'm gonna have to go to these
Jacob,
guys
come
to help
on.
me remember some of the scenes. But I
So
remember
have I.
this lightsaber fight was so cool, and I was just like I had just finished Clone Wars like not too long after this, and I was becoming an Ahsoka fan during this time, and this fight really elevated that, and it made her one of my favorites. So I really do like this scene a lot.
Dude, the doors open up and it's like this bright white light
Oh,
and
yeah.
silhouette, and you're just
so
like,
cool.
oh, let's go down.
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. Number 9 for me. Jump into the Clone Wars here. And I imagine it's definitely a fight that we'll be talking about with one specific person here anyway. And that is Ventress and Savage Opress versus Dooku.
Oh, nice.
Absolutely brilliant of a fight. It might be the most violent and aggressive of the fights that we're going to be talking about. There's one more later on that I'll be talking about that probably counters with that. But this one is incredible because out of all of the fights that we're going to be talking about, Ventress and Savage were essentially going there to murder Dooku. Like that was the idea, right? They were going there not to fight or to win a battle. They were going there to strictly kill this dude, and you can tell it within the fighting and how it kind of plays out. Also, it's really like almost our first display of Dooku and how powerful he is as a Force user. And it adds to what we see with him in live action. Obviously, having Christopher Lee play him, there's restrictions, but in animation, you can do whatever. And I love his fighting style. It's like this fencing type of style, right? It's very crisp and clean and like prestigious of a fighting style especially for a Sith Lord. But the way Savage and Ventress go after him is incredible. And the fact that Dooku just absolutely wallops them and they're just like flies on a wall to him is so fun and cool. And it's really like almost the introduction for Savage to us, because this was kind of like his introduction arc of growing him and becoming this guy from the Night Sisters and everything, and then seeing him kind of fully realized. But yeah, I mean, Ventress, we know about Ventress as a character, Savage kind of growing into the character that he is, but then getting a full display of what Dooku's abilities are, definitely ranking in the top 10 there.
That's a good one right there.
I actually don't have that, shockingly.
Well, there's
I am surprised. I really am surprised.
There's a few options there with some of those characters, so I think
Yes.
we'll see them later in Brian's
that
list.
that one probably came around 12 for me.
Interesting.
Only
Okay.
because it's a very slow, almost kind of fight, in my opinion.
Slow
But that is yes, and that is kind of how Dooku fights. And I didn't get that much Savage fight in there as much as it just clearly became a Ventress versus Dooku, so that kind of hindered
Fair
me
enough.
a little bit on that.
All right,
So,
let's move on to number 8.
Number 8, one that has already been said but is on my list, is Kanan and Ezra versus the Grand Inquisitor. I mean, for hell's sake, I got a Grand Inquisitor hot. So yeah, I love that character, and it bums me out that he was only used for that one season. He could have been a real menace that could have been around for a little bit. So it bummed me out how quickly they got rid of him, especially with the backstory he had of being a old temple guard. I would have loved to dive into that a little bit deeper. I'm a huge fan of the Inquisitors in general. So, yeah, I just loved his character. He just looks like that, like pure evil type character that you've seen in Star Wars, where you're like, automatically you're like, okay, yeah, that's definitely a bad guy.
Do we know what kind of species he is?
Isn't he one of the Utapau ones that
He might be, but those guys were huge.
well, that's
They
true.
were
Actually, and they
massive.
did kind of have
They look
the
very
line-
similar. I'll be interested to see what they are. We'll definitely look up that later on.
Yeah, but yeah, that the voice casting for that one is, I mean, you can't. That guy is the old. What's his name? Jason Isaacs.
Yes.
I think yes. He's the
Oh, we've
ultimate
talked about
voice.
him so much for like Green Goblin casting or something like that. He's great.
Yeah. He's the
Yeah.
ultimate bad guy. Like, I mean, he is just his voice is just you just know he's a bad guy, just the way he is.
I will
But,
never believe him if he plays a good guy. Never.
no,
You can't,
absolutely
no.
not.
Never.
No way.
But yeah, and I just did look it up. It's they're Pauuans and also known as Utapauans. So it is an Utapau
Cool. Sweet.
character. So, but yeah.
All right, Mr.
Number
Bartley.
8.
Nice. So my number 8 made me realize that in Star Wars, especially Clone Wars, there's so many times where two characters are working together and later on they're fighting each other, then they're working together and they're fighting each other. And this one is so this one's Obi-Wan and Asajj Ventress versus Maul and Savage Opress.
It's a dope fight.
Look,
it's a dope
for no
fight.
other reason, it's the only time we see Obi-Wan with a red lightsaber.
Yes, 100%.
So
yes.
That is awesome. And
Yes.
he only used it because he had to.
The only reason you need. That's the only reason you need.
Exactly. That's all I need. But it's just really cool. I love the dialogue between Obi-Wan and Ventress in this scene.
Yes.
They have this little flirtation going on, but they never actually get involved. They just have
Obi-Wan's a player, man.
Yeah.
He gets those girls.
He definitely likes to flirt. Like, he flirts a lot. And I'm pretty sure he's only been with one woman, though. But he loves to flirt, though. But yeah, this scene's awesome. And anytime I can have Maul fighting Obi-Wan, it's a good thing. And like I just said, Ventress was working with Savage Opress at first. And now in this scene, they're fighting each other because he starts working with Maul, I believe, after, because he's working with Asajj at first, right?
Yes.
And then Maul finds out,
and then he finds out that his brother's alive. That's
that's what it is. Yep. Yeah. So yeah, this is one of my favorite moments of Clone Wars ever, actually. But for lightsaber fights, it's number 8 is a good spot for it.
Sweet. All right, sticking with the Clone Wars. I have a fight that it's very hard for me to leave this low on the list because I think it's such a well-constructed fight, but it's Anakin versus Barriss Offee. And this fight to me is like it's like Anakin right before he makes that turn, right before the Revenge of the Sith happens, but it's all the emotion that's involved with it because this is the moment that he finds out that Ahsoka was blackmailed by Barriss Offee, and he finds the lightsabers in her room. She happens to have the red sabers. She's kind of turning to the dark side a little bit. She has flip sides for being a Jedi and kind of being a Sith apprentice in a way. And we see Anakin wield the red lightsabers for a little bit, which is so awesome. But he's so aggressive in this fight. And you kind of see that dark side of him come out here because of the emotional connection with Ahsoka, obviously. And the way it goes through the Jedi Temple and through the rooms and out the doors. And it's such a cool fight. I really do think that Barriss Offee wasn't used as much as I would have liked to have seen her because she's a really cool character. And she was used as she was supposed to be used, but I would have liked to have seen more of her. Her story is very interesting, but the fighting is just absolutely brilliant. She's very acrobatic and she dodges a lot of stuff. And he's just kind of like just walking towards her and swinging his saber. Like, he doesn't care what's in front of him. He's going for her no matter what because of what she did to Ahsoka. And for that reason, on top of a couple others, ranking at number 8 is Anakin versus Barriss Offee.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I kind of forgot about that fight, but now that you're talking about it, you kind of reminded me of it. It probably wouldn't have cracked my top 10, but it is a really cool moment when Anakin finds that out.
So aggressive and pissed off. It's such an awesome side of him.
Yeah,
Too bad he
I didn't
have.
I didn't have that either, but his fighting, that's like one of the first real times you see him fighting with his anger. So,
I realize Anakin doesn't have a lot of lightsaber fights in Clone Wars. Like, he's using his lightsaber a lot, all the time, using his lightsaber, just jumping off ships and stuff. But he doesn't actually have like one-on-one fights a lot in the shows. Interesting.
All right, so my number 7 is going to Rebels, and this is Ahsoka and Kanan versus Maul.
Love it.
Yeah, I love this fight. This is the fight, obviously, where Kanan gets blinded, and there's this one part that I love that Ahsoka does, and he says something along the lines of like, "Where do you think you're going, Lady Tano? We're not done." And she literally turns around smirking and goes, you have to deal with him first. And he gets up and has the mask on.
He's got the Inquisitor mask on. Yeah.
Yeah, and has to fight. And then she just kind of like smirks and walks off. And because Ahsoka's so good at doing that, where she's just like, "Yep,
she's the smartest person in the room at all times."
Exactly. So, if you can't tell, Jake's Ahsoka-ness is shining through just a little bit. But
Sorry.
yeah, no, it's fine. I love that scene because and then how he literally fights Maul by listening to the mechanics of his steps.
Different fight.
Is it?
It is a different fight. Yeah.
Oh, there's
am I thinking of something?
because
What am I mixing?
It's on the list.
You're
It is
thinking
on
of the
list.
same episode of. It's literally happened right after one after another.
Yes. So Ahsoka and Kanan versus Maul, and then there's Kanan versus Maul.
Yeah.
Okay, then stop it. Then stop it before Kanan fights. But before that, then
Yeah.
stop it.
Okay.
I didn't know
You're talking about when they're both fighting him.
Yes,
Yes,
when
yes,
they're both
yes,
fighting. Yeah.
Okay.
So then, yeah,
All
stop
right.
it.
Fair enough. All right. Number 7, Mr. Bartley.
My number 7 is Obi-Wan versus Maul in Rebels. I forget what's the name of the what's the name of the episode is something.
It's
Twin Sons or something
say?
something to do with the Twin Sons.
I think it's Twin Sons.
Which one did you just say? I was drinking water.
It's the Obi-Wan and Maul in Rebels, and
okay.
it's literally everything you guys already said. The only different thing I'll say,
Twin Sons.
The only different thing I'll say is I equate it to the Obi-Wan versus Vader fight in A New Hope. How we talked about that. How it's not the best fight. It's not even a fight really, and this is not really a fight, but it's a moment with lightsabers basically, and this is similar to that. A very meaningful, deep moment. Not the greatest action in the world, but it has so much depth and so much history behind it that's like the only reason it makes my list, because it's not really a fight, but it does have so much meaning. So number 7 is Obi-Wan versus Maul in Rebels.
I like it. All right, number 7 for me. Jumping into Rebels, and it's one that's already been mentioned. It's Ahsoka versus the fifth brother and the seventh sister. You guys saw me geek out when Jacob mentioned.
Oh yeah,
debut.
I was like, is it not
Ahsoka,
on his list?
of Ahsoka back in Rebels? Yeah, just an absolutely incredible moment. She absolutely just destroys them. It's not even like they're just not even in the picture. I love the way that she just like kicks the seventh sister to the side. Absolutely toys with the fifth brother. She jumps over them. You know, the way she opens up her sabers for the first time. We see this much more mature, more intelligent version of the character that we knew in the Clone Wars, the one that got so much crap for so many years, and look how important she is now, right? And this is when we first get to see the white sabers for the first time as well, which is a great moment. But yeah, we see a lot of Ahsoka fights, obviously, because realistically, she's really the main character of almost 2 series. So a lot of it focuses on her and her kind of journey. But there's a lot of times where the opponent that she is facing is equal to her, and it's kind of a tough battle. This is far from that. These two are no question nowhere near her ability. And I love the way that it just kind of ends up and how she kind of, she points the saber at the seventh sister, says, "You're beaten." I'm like, what are you going to do? You're beaten. And so, yeah, definitely for me, number 7, Ahsoka versus the fifth brother and the seventh sister.
Nice.
I figured Jacob would be the one to do this, but number 6 for me is the same thing. Is Ahsoka versus the Inquisitors, the fifth brother and seventh sister. Jake said my main point was she whoops them. She absolutely, it wasn't even a contest. And it's funny because I searched it up on YouTube just to refresh, and it's in the title of it is Ahsoka versus fifth. Ahsoka destroys fifth brother and seventh sister, and I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much sums up exactly what it is. I mean, she literally is just throwing them, kicking them, pushing they're no match for her. And like Jake said, the debut of those white lightsabers, and you see her, she just stands there. Because correct me if I'm wrong, have we not seen her up until that point, or no?
No. We saw her in the show, but that was the first time we saw her.
Yeah, with the sabers. So yeah, when you see the sabers come out, you're just like, oh man, what
what is going on? Why does she have white ones? But yeah. But I mean, we've heard all three of us have already said enough about it. And that one, she kicks their butt. So yeah, that's my number 6.
Awesome. So my number 6 is one. I think this is the second one that all three of us have mentioned now is Kanan and Ezra versus the Grand Inquisitor. I believe this was the end of season 1. I think
Yes, the last
if I'm
episode.
not mistaken. Yes, I was going to say the season finale of season 1. Yeah, it was. And I really liked Clone Wars, I really liked Rebels, but you know the end, not this episode necessarily, but just the last few episodes of season 1 really just locked me in, and I was already going to watch it anyway. But I really loved the way season 1 wrapped up, and it really felt like one journey ending and then continuing into season 2. So I really like that fight, and the Grand Inquisitor was kind of the big villain of the season, and this was the showdown. And I forget Ezra's involved in the fight at first. I mean, Ezra kind of gets, I forget what happens.
He gets whipped off the ledge.
Yes, and then it's them two fighting.
His saber. Yeah.
So and Ezra has the blaster lightsaber at this point. Yeah, I think he's shooting while he's running at the Grand Inquisitor. So it's just a cool fight, and really a cool one really early on for Rebels. So got to have it in there.
Cool. All right, number 6 for me as we round out the back half of the top, or the 10. I have Maul versus Pre Vizsla from the Clone Wars. Absolutely just bonkers of a fight. This is one of those situations where we see a Force user versus a non-Force user, obviously ending in the death of Pre Vizsla, a very popular character in the series. We see the dark saber, we see Darth Maul. It's not just saber versus saber, but we see Pre Vizsla using his bounty hunter ways, obviously, in the fight, getting on the jetpack, throwing some rockets at Maul, and it ends in a brutal way of Maul, decapitating him. So good. And this, I mean, again, what Jacob said, it's a violent show.
Star Wars and their decapitations.
But it's also a meaningful fight, right? It's Maul takes over Mandalore at this point because he beat Pre Vizsla, and now he has the dark saber. And but yeah, just an absolutely brilliant fight. And it also feels like Maul has now reached his like peak. He's at the top, right? He feels the most powerful at this point, and it really shows during the fight. And so I know a lot of people that I talk to and I see online, a lot of people have this as like their 1, 2, 3 spot. It's like up there for them.
Oh, wow.
But for me, it ranks in at number 6.
Fair enough.
So, Brian, real quick, before we get on to the top 5, go ahead and run through your list real quick. I want to make sure I have all the points correct here. So why don't you do it one by one, 10 through 6.
10 is Obi-Wan versus Maul in Rebels.
Okay.
9 is Sabine versus Gar Saxon. 8 is Kanan and Ezra versus the Grand Inquisitor. 7, Ahsoka and Kanan versus Maul. And 6 is Ahsoka versus the Inquisitors, the fifth brother, 7th. Yeah.
All right, Jacob.
All right, so number 10 for me is Obi-Wan and Adalia versus Maul and Savage Opress. Number 9 is Ahsoka versus the 5th brother and 7th sister. Number 8 is Obi-Wan and Ventress versus Maul and Savage. Number 7 is Obi-Wan versus Maul and Rebels. And number 6 is Kanan and Ezra versus the Grand Inquisitor.
Perfect. And number 10 for me is Kanan and Ezra versus the Grand Inquisitor. 9, Ventress and Savage versus Dooku. 8, Anakin versus Barrow Sophie. 7, Ahsoka versus the 5th brother and 7th sister. And number 6, Maul versus Pre Vizsla. All right, gentlemen, on to our top 5. I love how different these lists are. These are so
pretty different.
Yeah, they are.
It's a lot of fun. It'll be interesting to see what the final rankings are like. But go ahead and take us away, Brian.
I think they'll get some more similar in the top 5.
They always
do. Probably. So for me, my number 5 is one that was already said is Obi-Wan and Ventress versus Maul and Savage. If you watched last week, Asajj Ventress is my second favorite character, and she is a badass. And it's like they said, Obi-Wan and her have this playful relationship where she hates him, but then kind of like learns to respect him, but still is going to give him crap at the end of the day. They're fighting angry Maul, whose sole mission is to get revenge and go after Obi-Wan, and then Savage is just as angry and mean as Maul. So, and this is a long fight scene too. This is a very long fight scene. And I love, like Jacob said, seeing Obi-Wan fight with a red lightsaber. It's like, oh, sacrilege. It's like you can't do that. But then, like, immediately once he gets a hold of his blue one, he goes, "Here, take your red one back. I'm fighting with my blue one." So yeah, I love this fight scene, and for me, this is probably Ventress's best, in my opinion. So,
I love her. I love when she just pops in too. She's like sitting on a ledge, like, "Hey, do you need some help?"
Yeah, she's I adore that character.
All right, Mr. Barley, number 5.
All right. I'm assuming you guys both have this one, but if you do, I'm going to break the seal on this one, and it is Kanan and Ezra versus Darth Vader in Star Wars Rebels Season 2, I believe.
Yes, the opening of Season 2.
My memory is working. Yes, it is. Dude, I think this was in the trailer. They showed Vader in the trailer for Season 2, I believe.
And it was this episode. Yeah.
And we were all freaking out. Look, this is just so cool. We knew Kanan and Ezra weren't going to win this fight, but this is the moment where, for me, it's like, oh, shoot, Rebels is for real. Like, it's not just because they have Vader in it. It's the way they did it. It's like they have this fight. They know that these guys can't take on Vader, so they have them fight a little bit, and then the way Vader lifts I forget what it is on top of him. It's the ship.
It's the ATST.
Yes, the way he lifts it off of him, and it's just they got away from that fight. They lost it. They got away. They escaped before Vader would have killed both of them and ended the show, because those were the two main characters right there. But look, Season 1 was very, stuck within these characters, and then Season 2 is when they really just blew the doors open to expand the Star Wars canon. So this moment represents that, but it's also a really cool fight.
So I don't have that on my list, so I'll just speak quickly.
I don't either.
It's very, very close. I love the moment where Kanan turns around and he says, "Do you feel the cold?" And we just go, "Oh, he's coming. Oh, he's coming."
Yeah.
It's such a good moment.
One of my favorite moments.
And Ezra's like, "Who is this guy? I'm going to take this guy." And
he does. That's right. Yeah.
He pulls an Anakin. What a dummy.
Yeah. I don't have it either, shockingly for you.
Interesting.
So,
hey, closed the seal too.
Yeah. Open and closed.
All right. Number 5 for me is one that has been mentioned, and it features the most brutal death in Star Wars, and that is Obi-Wan and Adi Gallia versus Maul and Savage Opress.
Oh, yep.
A really, really, really great fight, and it's very extended. Obviously, Adi Gallia, she dies very early on, like very suddenly, like it happens very quickly.
Oh, they barely got off the ship.
Yeah, and I think the reasoning behind that is because it's the first time Obi-Wan and Maul see each other since Naboo. This is their first introduction back. Like, Obi-Wan finds out that Maul's alive in this moment, and the fight transforms from the battlefield into a tunnel, and it's absolutely incredible with them throwing boulders at each other, and like Obi-Wan going up against the both of them and standing his ground. He eventually gets away. But such a well-constructed fight, and obviously the emotion involved. You kind of quickly see a very different side of Obi-Wan, because he realizes that the guy who killed his master is alive. Like, the guy that had haunted him for so long is still alive, and obviously it's going to cause chaos throughout the galaxy. And so he kicks it on a little bit, which is very interesting. And then obviously Maul always going for vengeance, and Savage right there with him. But yeah, a very, very good fight, and a very long fight. It's definitely one of the longer fights we have on the list. So number 5 for me is Obi-Wan and Adi Gallia versus Maul and Savage Opress.
Sweet.
Awesome.
All right, so number 4 for me is going to be one that was also already mentioned, and Maul versus Pre Vizsla.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm actually shocked that I have this higher than you, Jake, personally.
I know. I thought about it. I had it high, and then I started thinking about it. I go,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, this fight's brutal. Like, Maul is out to kill and make sure he wins, and I I love how he like yells out like "I challenge you" or whatever.
It's
line
such
was.
gladiator style, and it's amazing.
Yeah, and so
Or Viking style, I'll say.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, it's a brutal fight and ends with one of the famous Star Wars decapitations. And yeah, this is the first little taste of Maul with Mandalore and that history. And it's a I just keep going back to it being it's a brutal fight, especially
And
with
the death of Death Watch too, which is very important.
that is true. That is true. And that dark saber, whew,
Yeah.
like up against his red one. There's some bad colors right there. But yeah, that's my number 4.
Awesome. Well, my number 4, and you guys might be surprised I have this on my list at all, but in this high is Sidious versus Maul and Savage Opress.
I'm not surprised at all.
This fight, man, this fight is crazy. I like this fight so much for multiple reasons, but one is just Darth Sidious, man. He is so powerful.
2 sabers.
He couldn't, like, they were no test for him at all.
No.
Like,
No.
not at all.
No.
And we know how powerful Maul is. Like, think about how powerful Maul is. And
I mean, Savage was powerful too, man.
Yeah,
I mean,
Yeah.
and his brother were just, it wasn't even a contest at all. Like, they just got their butts whooped. He kills Savage Opress, which sucks because I like that character. And I just like that Maul has a brother, and I just thought it was cool. A lot of people don't like Savage Opress. He's not my favorite character. He's not even in my top 20, but I like the idea of him and his character. But this fight scene is just so cool. I believe it's pretty long. I remember it jump around.
It starts up top and then it goes below the city of Mandalore.
Exactly. They jump around a lot, and they're doing, and like you said with Count Dooku in the movies, they can't do so much physically, but in the animated series, Palpatine's going ham in this scene. I'll always remember this scene when I think of Clone Wars. So this one is number 4 for me.
Well, funny enough, that is my number 4.
Whoa! Awesome.
Oh no!
Yeah, Sidious versus Maul and Savage. This you said it all, Jacob. This fight is absolutely just insane. I will add one thing that you didn't get to add. I love the fact that Sidious's hood never comes off. It's just amazing. So it never, and it's animation. Obviously, they can do whatever they want, but it never comes off, and his face is always dark shadow.
Holding it down with the Force the whole time.
Yeah, it's like Ray never gets sand in her hair.
It never moves. It's just like it's just sitting there. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But yeah, the fight is incredible. They are no match for him. They are no match for him. We see that Sidious he wields 2 sabers. He didn't do it in Revenge of the Sith, but he wields 2 sabers. That's his calling card. And the way that it ends is just brutal. Also, it's a moment that for us, hopefully we'll see at some point in an animation show or something. I know we saw it a little bit in a comic run, but that was the last time we saw Maul until Rebels.
Yeah,
that was
that's
the last
very
time
true.
we saw him. And so, or excuse me, until this recent season, I should say. This recent season of the Clone Wars.
Yeah, if you're going like chronologically, but we saw him in Rebels first and then saw him.
Yes, exactly.
There
were all these question marks around it. What Sidious had done with him, and then we found out in the comic run as far as he was in jail and everything. But yeah, the fight is incredible, and we see obviously a very aggressive, vengeance-filled Maul, because the entire time during the show, yes, he's trying to hunt down Obi-Wan, but he's really trying to go after Sidious for wronging him as well. And that carries over into Rebels too. And so it's a very passionate fight, maybe not for the right reasons, but it's a very emotionally driven fight. And unfortunately for Maul, doesn't end the way that it for him and the way he wanted it to, but it ended the way it needed to, because we needed to see how powerful Sidious was at some point, and this fight did exactly that. So number 4 for me, Sidious versus Maul and Savage.
Awesome.
I hate you guys, because that's my number 3.
Oh my goodness.
Dude, that's crazy that it got mentioned 3 times in a row.
I know.
Wow.
We went 4-4-3.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sorry, Brian.
No, it's fine. Oh, yeah, blame Jacob too. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing more to say.
I guess that speeds up the conversation.
It does. So yeah.
Why did Brian, like, why do you like it so much? Like, one reason, I guess.
Because it's just pure bad evil fighting. It's literally
that's a good point.
Yeah.
It's what is it? So does Maul have a double-sided at that point, or does he have one? Or Savage?
He has.
Oh yeah, Savage
Yeah, I
had
think so.
double-sided.
So there's
Yeah.
there's a total of 5 red blades between three
Yeah.
fighters.
It's just a giant, and Sidious isn't even sweating it. Like he's it's not even business for him. It's pleasure, and he just runs through them. But yeah, you guys said most of it, and I'm never going to complain with just a giant bad guy fight. So
True.
yeah,
That's awesome.
my number 3.
All right, Mr. Bartley, number 3.
All right, number 3 is Matt Murdock versus Maul. I mean, blind Kanan versus Maul. That's why I stopped you, Brian, because you're going to start going into it, and I was like, this is on my list. Well, I'll lead where Brian left off. We see Ahsoka smirk at Maul and say, you're going to have to deal with him first. And it's funny because he gets blinded, right? And I believe he gets knocked down or something. Or does he get left?
He gets shoved, and he's on the ground, and then Maul swipes him, and that's when he goes blind.
Oh, that's right. Okay. So then
No. I literally just watched this one. They're talking, and he's saying something to Kanan, and then turns around and gets Kanan in the face.
Oh, got it.
And then Kanan goes down on the ground.
We're working together, and then he turned on. That's right.
And then he turned on him,
yeah.
and then Ahsoka and him started going after it.
That's right,
and then that's when she says the line. You're gonna have a problem with it.
You know what? At first, I didn't like this because Kanan was my favorite character on Rebels, and I didn't like that they were blinding him. And I just was like, no, because we're never going to get to see his eyes again.
So early on.
Yeah, I didn't know how I felt about it. And if we go back, we probably talked about it before on podcasts, and I was not that happy. But over time, it's actually sat pretty well with me because it's really cool that when his eyes get taken away, his other force senses become stronger. And that's why Ahsoka smirked, because she knew that. Like she knew that that's what was going. That he was.
That's why Jacob cut me off when I was.
Well, he was just. I don't know what it is. It's like he just became more powerful because of it, you know, and just what it means going forward in the series and hit up to his very last moment in the series. Just him being blinded is Maul has so much impact on so many different characters. It's crazy, but I just love this scene because Kanan is my favorite character in Rebels. A new character introduced in Rebels. And this is like his moment, one of his biggest moments in the show. So I love it.
I love that he caught himself and said new character because he knew I was immediately going to go, what?
Well,
Obi-Wan's in it.
Because I know, Vader's in it and Obi-Wan's in it. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like as far as actual Rebel characters,
fair enough.
Kanan's my favorite.
Okay. Well, damn you, Jacob. That is my number 3.
Oh, wow. No. Let's see if I could do it 2 more times.
It's all good. It's all good.
Maybe.
Yeah, you said it all. The fight is really brilliant. It's not a very long fight because Kanan masters his senses very quickly.
Yep.
But
kicks him off the ledge.
Yeah, and a lot of the reason why I like this fight is because it's a completely different style of filmmaking from an animation standpoint. The camera starts to get low. If you watch the scene, the camera gets low and kind of gets in this like slow motion vibe. And when Maul is walking, you see Kanan putting the mask on behind him, and then Kanan raises up and the camera's on him with the mask, and it's just a brilliantly looking aesthetically for animation. And then he kind of masters his senses very quickly. It's like that sensei thing with like karate or anything like that. What? I gotta make my references.
You'll find a way to make references back to Vikings, Gladiators, or Karate Kid and everytheverything. At least one of those 3.
100%. Daredevil does that too. All right.
And then there's Jacob.
It's probably the shortest fight. It's probably shorter than the Obi-Wan Maul fight, to be honest. Like it's a very, very short fight, but it went exactly how it should have. And we spent the next season or so with Kanan trying to figure out all of this, how to be blind. But we see it right now about how he can do this. Like it's not something that's going to affect him. Like he beat Maul, whether it was a big or small feat. He beat Maul while being blind for the first time, which is a huge thing for a Jedi. And so the fight, it's truly just it's like that wake up moment, and it adds a whole different thing to the entire story and just in general. But the fight itself is really cool too, because you know when you see a character master his senses like that, almost like a Chirrut Imwe in Rogue One in that scene where we first see him for the first time, right? And he's hearing the stormtroopers' feet and everything. That's what it felt like in animation. So for me, there's no question that this is one of the best lightsaber duels that animation has ever done.
Yeah,
Awesome.
It's very cool because you get that panning shot of
Yep.
Maul's legs moving and then him like listening for it. But yeah, all right. So my number 2 is going to be Ahsoka versus Maul in the Clone Wars. Dude, yeah, this scene. God, what a way to close! What a way to close out Clone Wars with them two fighting. Yeah, I'm sure it's on other people's lists, so I'm not going to say too much. But dude, it's just these heavyweights that have been leading stories on opposite sides in Clone Wars and finally coming out ahead on Mandalore of all places. So, and we've been hearing about this fight for a while and it finally played out. So, yeah, I'll leave it because I know it's going to be on other people. So I'll say that enough for number 2.
I'm calling it right now. All three of us are going to have the same one and two,
Probably.
because my number 2 is Ahsoka versus Maul in the Clone Wars. And that fight is so new, but it's great. Like, it's, for me, it's clearly better than like the other 8 on my list below it. Like, it just is. There's no question about it. Just so much about it is just great. It's very long, like we talked about. A lot of these fights are short, so whenever we get a extended one, it's pretty cool. But also, what they did with Sam Witwer's
Motion
voice
capture.
and then the motion capture was just amazing. So I think that's what makes it so great is how they did that. And it was something, I'm sure it's been done before in animation, but not with lightsabers and in Star Wars. So I like this fight a lot.
Number 2 for me is Ahsoka versus Vader.
I knew
from
it.
Rebels.
I knew his was different. I knew his was different.
Oh, damn.
Yep.
Okay.
Look, I had a very hard time with my 2. I'll be honest, I switched it before we started filming. I flipped them because I thought of one thing. We are ranking for this specific ranking, we are ranking lightsaber fights. We're not ranking favorites. We're not ranking most emotionally filled, whatever it is. We're ranking the best lightsaber fight. And I'll get to my number 1, but number 2 here is, without any question, before season 7 of the Clone Wars, was the best lightsaber fight that animation has ever done, period. It was absolutely incredible. You add the emotional factor, obviously Ahsoka versus Vader, right? Ahsoka versus Anakin. The way that it was shot again, Dave Filoni doing incredible camera work. The music by Kevin Kiner is just out of this world good. Or actually, it might be Michael Giacchino. I gotta look at that. It might be Michael Giacchino in that one. But just the way that the fight goes down, about how Ezra kind of takes him on for the first time, and then we see Ahsoka pop in and be like, "No, like this is the fight," and then that brilliant line of, "I won't leave you again. I won't leave." Like, oh my god, like it just hits you so hard. And then you see Anakin through the mask, right? You see him through the mask. He's not burnt on that side, which is kind of strange, but he's not burnt on that side. And we hear Anakin's voice. It's not Vader's voice, but it's Anakin's voice. And it's just an incredibly well-balanced fight. And we even get to see more of it later on in the show when Ezra's in the world between worlds. We see a different side of it too, which even adds more to it. But yeah, the fight is, I could literally sit there and just watch it as like a GIF, just over and over and over again. It's Vader versus Ahsoka. It's what we wanted for the entire Rebels run. We wanted to see them come back together. Since the moment Ahsoka learned that Anakin was Vader, that's what it was all leaning towards. And without a doubt, it 100% lived up to the hype. So number 2, Ahsoka versus Vader.
Well, then we should just have Jake come back this way around with his.
No,
one.
you guys talk.
I'm kidding. My number 1 is Ahsoka versus Vader because of literally everything Jake just said. I'm sorry. I put emotions and stuff into my lightsaber fights. I think personally that's what makes them really good. I guess it's up to your interpretation of how it is. And this one just, I mean, seeing them go at it, these two characters that loved each other, cared about each other, and then just her realizing it's him, and all of this is just like, it's incredible. And the fact that you think like, oh, damn, Ahsoka's finally dead. They finally killed her. And then all of a sudden, World Between Worlds comes, and you're just like, oh my God.
You thought she was dead?
I mean,
here's my question with that. Does she die though? Or does Ezra save her?
No. So at the end of the episode, we saw her walking into the Sith temple.
I know, but
you guys remember that, right?
Yeah. That's what
she was walking. Yeah, she was walking into the Sith temple at the end of that episode.
She was like holding her side and limping into
and then in the World Between Worlds, Ezra pulled her out of the fight
before that happened.
So she
might have been dying. She might have been.
Vader could have ended up hurting her at least, but in the final episode of season 2, they ended with Vader walking out of the temple and then Ahsoka walking back in. So
I remember that.
Season 4, Ezra pulled her out before that happened.
We all thought that she died in that cave, though. Like it was left up to like speculation.
I never thought she was actually dead because she looked alive, but.
Well, it was all a big question mark. Everybody was debating it whether she was dead or not at the time.
Here, Jacob, you go into yours then.
No, but what? Well, it's
just a conversation. You're good.
No. I mean, his is going to be the same thing.
It's Ahsoka versus Vader, so we can continue talking about it. I'm just curious, like how it all works, because is the Ahsoka who goes forward in time the one that Ezra pulls out in World Between Worlds? Like, is that the Ahsoka in Rebels at the end in the season finale?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what happened to the Ahsoka that was limping and went into the cave? Did she die?
It never happened.
Yeah. So
it's not Avengers. It's not Avengers.
Yeah, the timeline's different in Star Wars.
Yeah.
But before Ezra did that, where was she?
Before he did that, she was fighting Vader.
Before he pulled her out of the World Between Worlds, though.
She was fighting Vader.
But what about all that time in between, in real time, the Ahsoka Vader fight, and then leading up all the way until World Between Worlds? Where was Ahsoka?
Let me say, what he's getting at is you just said how he pulls her out before that stuff happened. So he's saying what happened to that one that didn't.
It took Ezra years to do that, right? There's like 2 years in between, I believe. So where was Ahsoka? Was either dead or missing or something in that time.
Maybe there's 2 Ahsokas out there.
And that's what I'm saying. Possibly.
God.
But no, this fight, for me, this is just the fight in all of animation. And my number 2 could challenge that for sure. But this is Vader, Ahsoka versus Vader. It's like I never, once I finished Clone Wars, I never thought that I'd get to see Ahsoka face Vader, let alone actually fight him. So that alone is just enough to be number 1.
Well, it's no surprise here. I'm obviously the only one left who hasn't talked about this one. It is Maul versus Ahsoka from the Clone Wars season 7.
Nice.
This honestly, this rivals all-time lightsaber fights in both live action and animation. It is one of the best choreographed fights I have ever seen in my entire life. Lightsabers, fighting in general, whatever it could be, the way that the movements are with the characters. And it's funny because leading up to the season, we had no idea this was happening. Then this episode comes out, and like a week before it came out, it's revealed, oh no, they motion captured this. Like, what? Not even just Ray Park, but they found someone to motion capture Ahsoka as well. And you can tell.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess they'd have to do both. Yeah.
When you watch the fight, you can tell the movements are completely different than they are with the rest of the series. Like, even when characters are walking during the show and the way that they're kind of like filmed in this scene, it's a completely different look of just the animation in general. And it's
especially Ahsoka's fighting.
Real. Yeah, it's so real. And the way that just they're moving, and when she loses the saber and then she pulls it back and Maul's flipping, and it's so brilliant from start to finish. You throw in the music aspect of it. Again, Kevin Kiner doing the music for this one is just incredible. I know someone dubbed over the Dual Fates, which just works so perfectly.
Yeah.
But yeah, to me, and I love the Ahsoka Vader fight, obviously. But this is like no question for me. This is the technology aspect of it plays a huge part for me. The emotions are high, obviously, too, because Maul had just told her, your dude's going to turn to the dark side. He's the reason everyone's going to die. And she's like, what are you talking about? That's not going to happen. And then she kind of goes after him. But yeah, it was the lead up that we had been expecting for season 7, and it lived up to it. And then some, truly, and it wasn't short lived either. Like, it was definitely a well balanced fight that went on for a good amount of time. And they gave it to us. And I'm so glad, because I could not imagine not having this fight there. Ahsoka versus Maul for sure is number 1 for me.
It's crazy. We didn't have it not that long ago. So
I know it's so close.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Berlin.
Man, when we were doing these,
counting them up right now.
I didn't think our top 4 would be so close. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. I'm curious.
Right, I'm counting these up right now, guys. So just give me a second. A, B, C, D.
Jacob, you want Chipotle for dinner? That's what you're figuring out.
No.
Oh man, this could be. I have a feeling this is going to be close.
Yeah, it's very close.
I'm gonna say the number 1's going to be within 3, and the number 2 will be within 2.
All right, gentlemen, we officially have our top 10 here. Whoa, man. All right. So, ranking in at number 10 from Rebels is Kanan and Ezra versus Vader, and that is all thanks to Jacob.
Nice. I got it in there. I thought for sure you guys were going to have that one. That's crazy.
All right. So, number 9 is Obi-Wan and Adigalia versus Maul and Savage Opress.
There we go.
Ranking it with 7 points. Number
2.
8 is Obi-Wan and Ventress versus Maul and Savage Opress, ranking it with 9 points.
There we go, Brian.
I thought that one was going to be higher, but okay, keep going.
The only reason why I did not have it on my list is because I personally felt like it was very short. I felt like it was a very, very short fight.
There's like more conversation than blades clashing.
Number 7, also with 9 points, but because all 3 of us had it on the list, that is Kanan and Ezra versus the Grand Inquisitor. Number 6.
Yeah,
Number 6 with 11 points is Ahsoka versus the 5th brother and 7th sister. Number 5 is Maul and Pre Vizsla with 12 points. Number 4, Kanan versus Maul with 16 points.
Nice.
Number 3, oh man, I can't believe this is only a number 3. Ahsoka versus Maul from the Clone Wars. With
really? 3?
Oh, wait, hold on a second. No, hold on a second. No, hold on a second. Nope.
I was going to say there's no way.
I was going to say there's no way.
Nope. Here we go.
My face whipped around. What?
Here we go. Okay. All right.
I was like, mathematically, there's no way.
Okay. Number three. Excuse me. Number 3. Sidious versus Maul and Savage Opress with 22 points.
Ooh, that's pretty high.
And number 2 and number 1, only a 1 point difference. Number 2, Ahsoka versus Maul from the Clone Wars with 28 points. And number 1, Ahsoka versus Vader with 29 points. And I will not argue that because my shirt is literally Ahsoka with a shadow of Darth Vader. So I am 100% on board with that.
These are clearly the top 2. And it's Ahsoka fighting.
Top 3. We all pretty much did that.
Yeah, it's Ahsoka fighting the 2 of the most iconic villains ever. So
yeah, Ahsoka is, let's see, the top 5. Ahsoka is in, she's only in the top 2, but in the top 5, Maul is in 4 of the 5.
I figured Maul was going to be in a lot of them.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Wow.
I mean, I don't think anyone's going to complain about either of 1 or 2 being the number 1 spot.
This makes sense because we talk about Ahsoka and Maul all the time and how much these 2 series did for those characters. So it makes sense that they're in the forefront, like more than Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Vader and everything.
All right, so real quick before we get onto our personal honorable mentions, here are the 2 that barely missed the cut. At number 11, it was Obi-Wan versus Maul from Star Wars Rebels, thanks to you guys with 5 points. And number 4, thanks to Brian, was Ahsoka and Kanan versus Maul, because you had that on your list as well. So those are the 2 that barely missed the cut. And I'll read these off once we close the show. But let's go ahead and get to some personal honorable mentions really quick. Jacob, why don't you start us off, man?
Definitely one of my honorable mentions is Maul versus Pre-Vizsla, like that fight, and especially hearing you guys talk about it again, that fight is awesome, man. It's great seeing like different people who aren't Jedi and Sith fight Jedi and Sith. I love that, and it's because it's so difficult for anyone else. And when someone can actually hold their own in those kind of fights, like a Jango Fett in Attack of the Clones type thing, it's very impressive. Because to me, it's like, why doesn't a Jedi just like use the Force and just snap their neck or something? It's like it's probably more complicated than that, but that's a great fight. Yeah, that's really the only one that I was considering putting into that number 10 spot.
Cool. Brian?
Yeah, I said two of mine already.
Okay.
But I would say another one would have been the Kanan versus Maul. The blind one would have been close to it. So yeah.
So the two that I have on my list as 11 and 12. 11 was Obi-Wan and Ventress versus Maul and Savage. That was the number 11. And then number 12 was Dark Ahsoka versus Anakin and Obi-Wan from the Clone Wars.
I'm actually surprised no one had that one on the list.
I love that fight. I really, really love that fight. That fight also has a lot of talking because they're trying to get Ahsoka to come back.
Much.
But I think it's a really cool fight, obviously, because we see Dark Ahsoka and it's part of, the Mortis arc and everything. So those are the 11 and 12 from me. All right, let me go ahead and run through these really quick before we get out of here, boys. Number 10, Kanan and Ezra versus Vader from Star Wars Rebels. Number 9, Obi-Wan and Adi Gallia versus Maul and Savage Opress from the Clone Wars. Number 8, Obi-Wan and Ventress versus Maul and Savage Opress from Clone Wars. Number 7, Kanan and Ezra versus the Grand Inquisitor from Rebels. Number 6, Ahsoka and versus the fifth brother and seventh sister from Rebels. Number 5, Maul versus Pre-Vizsla from the Clone Wars. Number 4, Kanan versus Maul from Rebels. Number 3, Sidious versus Maul and Savage Opress from Clone Wars. Number 2, Ahsoka versus Maul from the Clone Wars. And number 1 from Star Wars Rebels, Ahsoka versus Darth Vader.
By 1 point. That's great.
By 1 point. Quite a list. A lot of good stuff to talk about there. And it's really cool because they kind of kept going back and forth between the two shows, which is really, really cool. So, but yeah, guys, that is it for this week's show. We're ranking all-time animation lightsaber fights in Star Wars. That is the Star Wars Rebels and Star Wars The Clone Wars. Make sure you guys let us know what your top fights are down in the comments. We would love to hear from you guys. Not just that, but on what you think of our personal list and our overall consensus list. I will be posting our top 5 list on social media and YouTube, so you can check that out later on. But for now, this is this week's Padawan podcast. Make sure you guys are following us, not just on YouTube, but social media everywhere at Apocaflix Movies, as well as all of our podcast platforms. So that is Apple, Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcast Breaker, all of those places. Wherever you listen to your podcast, you can find the show. So again, for Obi-Wan Jacoby, for Grand Admiral Sino, and myself, Qui-Gon Jake, we are the Padawan Podcast. We thank you for joining us, and we will see you guys next time. May the Force be with you.